I've always believed that something's wrong not when things fall apart loudly, but when they quietly shift out of place. A misplaced object. A laugh that doesn't come. It started like that, a garage door opener, a Tuesday with nothing special on its surface, and a feeling I couldn't name. It was mid-September, one of those peculiar days when the sun still beams as if it's July, yet the wind hints at the approaching chill of October. I returned home from work early, not for any virtuous purpose. I had reached my limit of feigning interest in the reasons behind a tractor's left axle misalignment while Dale from purchasing busied himself with Sudoku instead of placing orders for parts. I informed my supervisor that I had a dental appointment scheduled. It's puzzling how the dentist has become the default excuse. Perhaps it's simply that people are hesitant to delve deeper into the topic of gums. As I rolled into our driveway in my battered Ford, which carries the lingering scent of old coffee and a hint of dry wit, I pressed the button for the garage door. Silence prevails. Pressed it once more. Silence prevails. Currently, we reside in a modest home, not a grand estate or futuristic stronghold. It's an ordinary suburban residence located in the outskirts of Indianapolis. A garage designed for 2 vehicles. Vinyl cladding. Hopes and dreams gradually diminishing alongside the declining property value. The opener functioned perfectly that morning as I departed. What about now? Flat as a pancake. Feeling a twinge of irritation, I found a spot on the street and made my way around to the back. The side gate stood ajar, an unusual sight that piqued my curiosity. Nothing to see here. Merely peculiar. Violet was typically the kind of person who meticulously ensured that locks were secured as if safeguarding classified information. Very well. Perhaps she simply overlooked it. Perhaps she unexpectedly found faith in the goodness of people. Unusual events have occurred. Similar to the complete essence of reality television. As I pushed the back door open and crossed the threshold, the sound of music enveloped me. Not the sort you anticipate when someone is tidying up, preparing a meal, or simply going about their daily life. It lacked any sense of cheer. It was oddly precise. A collection of late 80s Canadian jazz pop tunes. I'm aware of this because one of the tracks, Swim by Feist, ended up on a CD I inadvertently left in Violet's car 11 years back, and I was teased so relentlessly that she dubbed it Max's Sad Boy Mix. Picture my astonishment as the sound drifted from the living room, as if it had been lingering in the shadows, poised to return and unsettle me once more. I shouted, "Violet?" No response. I slipped off my shoes, wandered into the living room, and discovered it was empty. Only that tune, accompanied by a glass of water resting on the coffee table. I silenced the speaker and paused for a moment. That unsettling sensation? Indeed, it was slowly making its presence known, yet I remained unperturbed, not entertaining any thoughts of a dramatic turn. Perhaps Violet was in the lavatory. Perhaps she was engaged in a Zoom call upstairs. I strolled into the kitchen to fetch a drink. It was at that moment that the calendar caught my eye. Now, Violet has this delightful tendency to embellish her monthly calendar as if it were a creative masterpiece. Vibrant markers, decorative stickers, and inspiring quotes from individuals who likely received excessive compensation for their words. On this very day, a sticker caught my eye, a duck sporting sunglasses, accompanied by the bold inscription Operation Citrus in vibrant green Sharpie. Execution. Citrus fruits are vibrant and refreshing, bursting with flavor and zest. Their bright colors and tangy taste bring a lively essence to any dish or drink. What in the mildly zesty chaos? The amusing aspect is that after cohabiting with someone for an extended period, you begin to develop an unspoken dictionary of all their quirks. You know their codes, their shorthand, their quirks. But Operation Citrus was new. Too new. And far too organized for Violet, who once labeled our tax folders Money Sadness, Part 1 and 2. Now I was interested. I stood there staring at that duck sticker like it owed me an explanation, when I heard something. A thud from the garage. Which was weird, considering, dead garage door. I walked to the laundry room and tried the inner garage door. Locked. Another oddity. Violet never locks that one. I grabbed the spare key from the drawer and turned the knob, half expecting to find her reorganizing Christmas decorations or cursing at a dead flashlight. Instead, I opened the door to find the most beautifully stupid thing I've ever seen. A miniature stage. A stage, Max, in your garage. It was no bigger than a camping tent, made of plywood and Christmas lights, with a curtain fashioned from what I later realized was our old dining room tablecloths. And standing behind it, looking like a deer caught mid-shuffle, was a man wearing a gold lame blazer and holding a ukulele. He froze. I froze. We were a tableau of confusion. "You're not the florist," he said, as if that clarified anything. "No," I replied. "And this isn't a flower shop." There was a pause. Then a noise behind the curtain. And out stepped Violet, holding what appeared to be a clipboard and wearing the kind of fake smile that usually only shows up in hostage videos. "Max," she said a little too brightly. "You're home early." "Oh, I gathered that. And you're in a garage theater?" She sighed. "Okay. So, this is a little weird. I'd go with very." She gestured around like a magician mid-reveal. "This was supposed to be a surprise." "Well, you've certainly succeeded." Gold blazer guy, who introduced himself, absurdly, as Trevor with AX, had apparently been working with Violet on what she called a conceptual neighborhood performance art project designed to challenge suburban assumptions. Also, Trevor added, to heal emotional rifts between star-crossed lovers through interpretive song. Interpretive song. I repeated, blinking. "Max, it's performance therapy," Violet said, as if this was something that happens in garages across the Midwest. Now, I wasn't born yesterday, or the day before. I didn't need a forensic team to tell me that Trevor with AV was not just her creative partner. There was an energy between them. The way she smiled too tightly. The fact that she never mentioned anything remotely resembling a garage-based musical therapy project. Also, the ukulele. No man in his right mind carries a ukulele unless is either being ironic or inappropriate. "I see," I said, looking at them both. "Operation Citrus. Makes a lot more sense now." Violet paled. "You saw the calendar." I did. "I also remember a time when you said interpretive art was just a way for people to avoid getting real jobs. But hey, maybe I've misunderstood your artistic evolution." Trevor started to speak, but I held up a hand. "Please. Don't. Unless you're about to play closing time in falsetto, I really don't think I can take it." I left the garage, walked back inside, and sat down on the couch. The ridiculousness of it all just washed over me. Not rage. Not devastation. Just this numbing cocktail of disbelief and tragic amusement. A garage stage. A ukulele. A duck sticker. I mean, come on. When Violet finally walked in, alone, she sat down across from me like a child waiting for a dentist to confirm a cavity. So she started. "Oh no. No. Let's not do the usual," I said. "Let's not do the tearful confession or the half-hearted denial. Let's just acknowledge what happened for what it is. An interpretive disaster." She gave a small, almost embarrassed laugh. "I didn't plan for it to happen. Most people don't," I said. "But some people also don't plan musical theater in their garage." I was unhappy. "Sure," I said. "But you know what I did when I was unhappy last winter? I bought a punching bag and developed a mild addiction to pistachios. I didn't, build a stage." She didn't argue. There was nothing left to argue. And that, my friend, was how it started. With a broken garage door, an undercover stage production, and a man in gold lame who thought he was subtle. Turns out, the details weren't just where the devil was hiding. They were where he built his whole set. Trevor with AV was not someone you forgot easily. That much became clear roughly 20 seconds into meeting him. Not because he said anything profound or particularly clever. Actually, the opposite, but because he had a tendency to stand just a few inches closer than polite society recommends, and he layered two scarves like he thought he was escaping a fashion-related hostage situation. That evening, after Violet delivered what I'll generously call her explanation, Trevor lingered in our driveway like a man waiting for a cab that would never come. He seemed to be under the impression we might all sit down and process our feelings over herbal tea and interpretive marionette work. Instead, I told him our garage was closed for renovations until further notice, and he wandered off in the general direction of his scooter. Yes, of course he had a scooter, humming something suspiciously close to Enya. Violet didn't try to follow him. She just hovered near the door like she was unsure whether she was supposed to apologize or invite me to a trust fall. I told her I had a headache and watched her nod like that made sense. Over the next few days, she didn't bring up the garage stage or Trevor again. It was like we were both participating in some mutual unspoken agreement to pretend the weirdest thing that had ever happened in our marriage didn't happen. The jazz pop playlist was turned off, the gold blazer was nowhere to be seen, and the calendar got mysteriously replaced with a new one featuring quotes from CEOs and stock photos of people smiling in business meetings. The tension was not so much cut it with a knife as it was slice it with passive-aggressive glances and over-enthusiastic vacuuming. I didn't confront her directly, not because I was afraid or confused or some tragic soap opera character. I just wanted to watch. I figured if she was going to lie, she should have the full stage to do it on, and I would sit front row, program in hand. Violet, for her part, started behaving like she was trying to win Employee of the Month in a job she didn't know she had. She began asking me about my day, complimenting my shirt choices, and even offering to help me reorganize the garage, which was now empty except for a pile of dismantled stage parts and a single glittery shoe that didn't belong to either of us. One evening, while we were watching a rerun of a show we both used to. Like before irony ruined it, Violet said, "So, I was thinking, maybe we could take a weekend trip, just the two of us." "To where?" I asked. "A couple's retreat for people who accidentally build theater sets during affairs." She didn't laugh, but she also didn't deny it. She just offered a faint smile and said, "You've always had such a dry sense of humor." "Thanks. I try to keep it low humidity," I replied. She dropped the subject. But the real fun started when I realized the garage fiasco was only the tip of a very polite, very strangely organized iceberg. On Sunday, I got curious. Not about Violet. That part was already settled in my mind. I was curious about Trevor, because, frankly, the man intrigued me. People like him usually exist only in coffee shop corners and adult pottery classes. Yet here he was, in my garage, with props, and a set list. I remembered he mentioned something about a creative commune during his awkward departure, which I assumed was either a metaphor for his group chat or a real thing involving compost toilets. A quick online search brought me to a Facebook group called Speaking My Truth, the Mindful Collective of East Marion. The banner image was, of course, a group of barefoot adults in a circle holding crystals. There he was. Trevor with AV listed as emotional cartographer/stage artisan. I'm not making that up. Emotional cartographer. His most recent post was a photo of our garage, tagged rehearsal space, Suburban Series Volume 2. Secrets in the structure. Now, I don't consider myself a particularly vindictive man, but I do believe in curiosity as a guiding principle. So I clicked on the post. The caption read, "In partnership with an undisclosed muse, this space has birthed a piece of raw, unfiltered truth-telling. A dialogue of longing, risk, and domestic reinvention. Rehearsals ongoing. House lights dimming soon. Undisclosed muse. Well, naturally, I made an account. Under the name Marv. Marv liked community theater, fermented beet juice, and asking way too many questions. I joined the group and commented, "Sounds fascinating. Will this be a ticketed event?" Trevor responded within minutes, "Hey Marv, thanks for your energy. This particular installation is invite only, for those directly affected by the domestic landscape being explored." Domestic landscape. I had never felt more personally insulted and simultaneously impressed by a euphemism in my life. The next day, I noticed Violet had started dressing differently. Not drastically, just subtle shifts. More flowy pants. A vest that looked like it was designed by someone who hated structure. And scarves. Scarves in temperatures that did not call for scarves. I knew what this meant. She wasn't just dabbling in a little jazz art adultery. She was joining his commune. Now, most men would probably be devastated by this. I wasn't. I was fascinated. Because Violet, bless her organized little heart, had never once shown interest in anything remotely communal. She used to refer to potlucks as food roulette and once threatened to write a Yelp review because a restaurant gave her paper straws. And yet here she was, attending open-air meditations and suddenly replacing our almond milk with oat. By Thursday, I had enough pieces to begin connecting the puzzle. Violet wasn't just seeing Trevor. She was becoming him. Or at least a less glittery, more spreadsheet-literate version. That night, while she was upstairs doing whatever it is people do during intentional silence, I went back to her calendar. The new one. It didn't have duck stickers, but it had a post-it. Rehearsal, Trevor's place. Bring energy. It was underlined. Twice. I texted my coworker Michael and asked if he could swing by that evening with his drone. Michael, a man with far too much money and too little supervision, has a fleet of drones and the enthusiasm of someone who peaked in high school shop class. I gave him the address I found on the Facebook group's About section and told him to do a flyby around 8 p.m. I don't regret this decision at all. The next morning, Michael handed me a flash drive with a smirk and said, "Max, my friend, you owe me a beer and an explanation." The video was simple. The backyard of a small house with folding chairs arranged in a circle, fairy lights strung between laundry lines, and a group of people sitting cross-legged. At the center, Trevor stood in front of a whiteboard with the words, "Healing Through Honesty," written in purple marker. And there she was. Violet. Wearing a tunic that looked suspiciously like our old shower curtain, nodding solemnly as Trevor spoke about emotional gardening. He asked each person to share their truth seed. Violet's turn came, and I turned the volume up. She stood, took a breath, and said, "My truth is, I've been living a lie, and it's time to turn the page." The group clapped. I paused the video and stared at the screen. So, to summarize, my wife had not only cheated, but she joined a group therapy circle led by a man in 2 scarves, confessed some vague poetic version of her betrayal, and applauded herself for it. I closed the laptop. Violet walked in a minute later, holding 2 mugs of something that definitely wasn't coffee. "Want to try my new dandelion root tea?" she asked. I smiled. "Sure. Let's toast. To new beginnings." And that was the moment I knew exactly what I was going to do next. But I'd let her enjoy her tea first. She earned it. She really earned it. There are people who cry when they find out their spouse has been sneaking around. Others yell or dramatically toss their wedding ring into a body of water. I opened Excel. Not immediately, of course. I gave it a day. Let Violet hum her way through another mindfulness podcast while drinking something called activated charcoal water like she joined a cult run by Whole Foods. She still hadn't brought up Trevor. I hadn't brought it up either. We were now a couple existing in what I describe as emotional Slovenia. Neutral, awkward, and pretending not to notice the war happening at the border. But I needed a plan. And plans, in my opinion, work better with tabs, color coding, and a few conditional formatting formulas. So, yes, I sat down at my computer and opened a blank workbook titled Project Citrus Exit Strategy. The tabs were labeled as follows: Timeline of Deceit, Commune Activities Log, Financial Reallocations, Backup Evidence Video, Retirement of Marital Nonsense. Was it petty? Absolutely. Was it organized? Impeccably. Under Timeline of Deceit, I began logging events starting from the date Trevor appeared in my garage like a misplaced magician. Every activity, calendar note, wardrobe change, and scarf count went into that spreadsheet. I even tracked when she started using the word aligned to describe her mood instead of just saying she was fine. That was week 3, for those keeping track. Under Commune Activities Log, I cross-referenced her social media posts that Facebook group Trevor ran, and the time she suddenly had night journaling sessions with a woman named Petra. Petra, by the way, once posted a photo of herself next to a burning bundle of sage with a caption, "Cleansing my timeline." I had no idea what that meant, but I gave it a red flag anyway. Then came the financials. Financial reallocations wasn't dramatic, it was honest. I started moving money from our joint accounts into an entirely separate one under my name. Nothing illegal. Just the kind of housekeeping one does when their spouse starts investing in group vision boards and referring to a grown man as her emotional lighthouse. Violet didn't notice. Or if she did, she was too preoccupied trying to decode the latest message from her dream cycle. I noticed she'd begun keeping a dream journal. It was purple, had a moon sticker on it, and included phrases like swimming through golden syrup and the trees whispered Trevor's name. I'm not sure if that was meant to be poetic or disturbing. Possibly both. The best part was the backup evidence tab, where I compiled the drone footage, screenshots of the Facebook group, and several audio recordings of her healing monologues that she'd uploaded to a podcast platform no one asked for. I called it Trevor Talks, and it had a grand total of 6 listeners, 3 of whom were probably other people in the commune pretending to care. Now, you may be wondering, what's the end goal here? What is Max trying to achieve, exactly? Revenge? Not exactly. Exposing her? Tempting. But no. I wasn't interested in some public confrontation. I was interested in something far more satisfying: administrative chaos. See, Violet prided herself on being the planner in our relationship, the scheduler, the list maker. Her Google Calendar had more colors than a pride parade, but while she was busy aligning her chakras with strangers who smelled like patchouli and unpaid taxes, I was turning her world of spreadsheets and order into a slowly unraveling ball of confusion. It began small. I changed our Netflix profile names. Hers, originally Violet Red Heart, became Shared Account, Shared Lies. Mine became Definitely Not Watching with Trevor. Then I started changing her calendar invites. Nothing malicious. Just enough to mess with the rhythm. Her Thursday sound bath event mysteriously shifted to weekly trash audit. Her community council prep suddenly became Trevor Talk rehearsal, socks optional. She didn't notice for 2 full days. Then came the printer incident. Violet went to print her mindfulness workbook and instead got 30 copies of a flyer I designed in Word that said, "Seeking emotional clarity? Try honesty. Now available in your own kitchen. Ask for maximum." She didn't say a word. Just stood there, printer humming like it was in on the joke, and slowly fed each page into the shredder like she was auditioning for a new lifestyle in espionage. By the end of the week, Violet finally asked me, "Have you noticed anything strange? You mean besides the man in our garage doing jazz hands about truth?" "I'm serious." "So am I." She paused, clearly weighing whether to continue. I think maybe I'm going through a shift." I nodded. "Well, shifts are good. But you might want to shift your attention to the joint checking account before we hit empty and start writing checks in emotional currency." Her mouth opened. then closed. No comment. That Sunday, she invited Petra and another commune member over. A man named Wade. Wade wore a leather necklace and introduced himself as a sacred listener. I made it exactly 11 minutes into their discussion about eco-spiritual recalibration before excusing myself to go alphabetize the spices. For the record, we don't have many. It was mostly salt in different containers. Still took 30 minutes. Later, I heard Petra say something like, "Have you shared your journey with him? Your truth?" And Violet responded, "Not in the way I want to yet." At that point, it was clear. She still hadn't admitted anything. Not to me. Not directly. Her version of confession involved group hugs, homemade kombucha, and emotionally vague word salads. That night, I logged the exchange into the spreadsheet under verbal dodges. I also created a 6th tab, Exit Events Planning. This one was my favorite. It included a list of minor, meticulously timed actions that would slowly make my departure the most organized, emotionally indifferent, and irritatingly flawless exit in the history of disappointing marriages. Here's a sample from the list. Cancel her yoga mat subscription, effective next cycle. Leave note. I believe you've already stretched this relationship far enough. Schedule a moving van for Tuesday afternoon. The day she has her non-verbal group meditation. Leave behind exactly one item, a small whiteboard with a message, "This was your stage." I just exited left. Print copies of the drone footage and mail them to Trevor labeled, "Behind the scenes." I wasn't planning to yell. I wasn't even planning to argue. I was planning to exit like a data breach, quiet, thorough, and with just enough disruption to leave an impression. I had everything sorted, except for one small thing. Violet, for all her vague language and whimsical nonsense, was still acting like we were fine. Like maybe, if she said enough vague affirmations and poured enough flax milk into the blender, this would all smooth over. So, naturally, I scheduled a marriage counseling appointment. Not because I wanted to fix anything. Because I knew she'd never expect it. I picked a guy who specialized in conflict resolution through charts and behavioral matrices. Violet hated charts unless she made them. When I told her about the session, her face twitched. "You want counseling?" I nodded. "I want clarity." She hesitated. "Okay, but I think we should prepare by journaling our intentions." "Oh, I have," I said, sipping my coffee. "In 6 tabs." Her smile faded. The session was next Thursday. I planned to bring my laptop. It was time to present the data. The waiting room smelled like carpet glue and regret. You could tell this wasn't the kind of place people came to get better. It was the kind they came to confirm that things were as bad as they suspected. A fake plant stood in the corner, holding up a motivational sign that read, "Progress is a process." Violet stared at it like it was going to open up and offer her enlightenment. I stared at the wall clock, which ticked louder than any normal clock should, like it knew we were all lying to ourselves just by being there. She wore something made of linen. Lots of it. Like she'd lost a fight with a sewing machine that had strong opinions about minimalism. I showed up in my usual jeans, t-shirt, a well-worn hoodie, and a spreadsheet file named Mutual Transparency Initiative stored on a flash drive in my pocket. The therapist, a middle-aged man named Craig, which felt both too casual and too forced, had decorated his office in the style of IKEA clearance corner. 2 chairs with suspicious cushions. 1 couch that probably came from someone else's breakup. A desk with a Himalayan salt lamp that hadn't earned its paycheck in years. "Max." "Violet," Craig said, smiling like we were 2 toddlers about to share a toy. "Glad you could come in. I just want you both to know this is a safe space." Violet nodded with all the sincerity of a person who's memorized talking points. "We're really open to honest communication." I nodded, too. "I've prepared a few visuals." Craig blinked. You brought visuals? Violet asked, suddenly less serene and more moderator at a town hall meeting. I find visuals help cut down on the part where people pretend they forgot what they said 2 days ago. Violet let out a small sigh, but Craig smiled like this was the spices Thursday needed. Well, as long as everyone's open to the process. I inserted the flash drive into his laptop, and there it was, the spreadsheet. Each tab labeled. Each cell filled with the quiet, relentless power of evidence gathered by a man who had stopped arguing a long time ago and started documenting instead. Craig leaned forward. So, Max, why don't you walk us through what we're seeing here? Sure. This first tab is a timeline of notable changes. You'll notice that week 5 aligns with Trevor's first confirmed presence in our garage. Week 6 begins the scarf face. By week 8, she'd begun replacing conjunctions in her sentences with the word alignment. Violet exhaled sharply. This is ridiculous. No, ridiculous would be me pretending like I didn't listen to your podcast episode called Zen and the Art of Rebellion, where you and Trevor discussed the spiritual tension of shared living. Craig raised his eyebrows. It was a metaphor, Violet said quickly. For what? I asked. The part where you said, sometimes I look at the person across the breakfast table and feel like I'm sharing a sink with a stranger? Or the part where Trevor sang a freestyle song about freedom and socks? She folded her arms. We came here to work on things. Great, I said, clicking to the next tab. This one's titled Communication Breakdown, and it shows the decline in meaningful conversations compared to the increase in community meetings involving ceremonial bowls. Craig cleared his throat. Let's pause there for a second. No need. I have charts. Maximum Violet interrupted, trying to smile. You're turning this into some sort of presentation. I said, yes, because that's how you prefer things, right? Curated, structured, and dressed up as insight so you don't have to actually say anything direct. You're excellent at that. Speaking in emotional PowerPoint, Violet turned to Craig. Do you see what I mean? This is the kind of behavior that makes it impossible to connect. Oh, we're connecting now, I said. This is the most attention I've had from you in months. Craig tried again. Maybe we can redirect this energy. Violet, what would you say your main goal is today? Violet straightened in her chair, and I knew what was coming. She had rehearsed this, probably while lighting a candle made of recycled hope. I want to rediscover how we relate to each other without relying on our past assumptions. Craig nodded slowly, like he was pretending this meant something. Okay, that's an important goal. I raised my hand. I'd like to point out the contradiction in that statement and ask for a ruling. Craig held up a calming palm. Let's try to focus less on contradiction and more on mutual understanding. Sure, I said, clicking to the tab titled Energy Shifts and Other Nonsense. It included quotes from Violet's podcast, direct comparisons to things she'd said to me during arguments, and a column titled Words Used Instead of Just Saying Sorry. Craig's expression drifted from amused to deeply tired. Violet reached for her bag and pulled out a notebook. Maybe I should read something I wrote. Oh, please do, I said, reclining slightly. I assume it rhymes. She opened it and began. When the soul turns sideways. Nope, I said, standing up. Nope. If the soul's doing gymnastics, we're not in the same class. Craig tried again. Max, can you tell us what it is you need from Violet right now? I need her to stop hiding behind her dream journal and her emotional containers and just admit the obvious. That Trevor isn't her creative partner. That this whole commune thing is a boutique escape hatched from a life she got bored of but didn't have the guts to leave honestly. Violet frowned. You think I'm dishonest? I laughed. I think you've used the phrase reimagining truth 4 times in 1 week without actually telling it. Craig turned to her. Violet, have you and Trevor been romantically involved? There it was. A real question. She hesitated. And in that second, I swear I could hear the spreadsheet in my mind auto-filling the cell under denial. I don't think that's the right framework, she said. Craig blinked. It's not a framework. It's a yes or no. Violet closed her notebook. Fine. Yes. We kissed. Once. But that wasn't the point. Was the point to construct a full garage theater and debut your new identity as woman who feels deeply but shares selectively? Craig made a note. Probably. Couple needs follow-up session or adult chaperone. Violet rubbed her temples. I didn't want to hurt you. But you just didn't want to stop either, right? Because it felt meaningful. Because it wasn't boring. Because it wasn't me. Silence filled the room in the way only truths people already knew can be. If you like true stories, full of emotions and meaning like this, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next video.